Hi, everyone. Great to have you with us. It's a brand new edition of the MSG 150 at Home presented by Chase. Bill Pidto along with Michelle Gingras and Alan Hahn. And we know it's John Wallace because all we have to do is look at what is on his hat. J-Dub. How you doing, J-Dub?
All good, man. All good. Ready for a happy Friday, my brother.
As always, we thank those who are working to keep us safe and healthy. And for the first time in a long time, we are going to have a local baseball franchise change hands in terms of ownership. We don't know when the Mets are going to get sold. We don't know to whom the Mets are going to get sold, but they're getting sold. And keep in mind, the Yankees have been owned by the Steinbrenner family since 1973. Nelson Doubleday and Fred Wilpon bought the Mets in 1980. Wilpon bought out Doubleday in 2002, and that's where we are right now. So, Alan, the fact that this is going to happen doesn't matter when, doesn't matter to whom, but it's going to, and that is very significant.
It is. It's historic in New York sports. There's no question about it, just because of what you said. This is not something that happens that often. Teams in New York really don't often get sold. And when they do, it's significant on many levels, mainly because it's always about now what happens next, what comes next. And the Mets are certainly a franchise like that, where you look at the potential of owners. And the biggest name that's out there, of course, is Steve Cohen, who's been part of the minority ownership of the Mets. So already has some investment in the team, a Long Island guy who grew up a fan of the Mets, and he's got a lot of money, not just a little, a lot. This is the most amazing thing about a guy like Steve Cohen as a potential owner. And reports are that he put up $2 billion for the team and another $2 billion for the network that covers the team, that has the team as well. That's a lot of money, $4 billion investment into it. He's valued by Forbes at $14 billion. He would be, in Major League Baseball, among Major League Baseball owners, he would be the richest owner in the league by $10 billion. The Washington Nationals owner is valued at $4 billion. So by $10 billion, he'd be the richest owner in the sport. And if you're a Mets fan and there's no salary cap in that sport, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think it's amazing that I was reading, actually, I believe in the New York Post, that New York hasn't even probably thought of what it would be like to have, we've gotten used to like the Yankees, having a lot of unlimited resources, to have two teams in the same market that could have the potential to spend whatever they want to spend to get the type of guys that they want to get would be very enticing for Mets fans. But another one that stood out to me was Alex Rodriguez. I think he's a very attractive offer as well. He came in with Jennifer Lopez. They put an offer on the table that was reports around, I believe, $1.7 billion. So they're right there in the running as well. And you have to wonder if owners are going to look at him and think, okay, look, we want a guy that has been a player, that maybe has the player's interest to some extent, that we can negotiate and that players will trust. So I think he's an enticing offer as well.
Well, like you said, I love the Alex Rodriguez. I hope he gets opportunity because, he's really turned his whole image around in the last 5 years or so. So I'm happy for him. But I'm really happy for the Mets and the Wilpons in particular because of what they went through with Bernie Madoff and that whole debacle. So for them to be able to recover from that, that was such a treacherous thing they went through, and it almost wiped them clean. And for that franchise to bounce back and to be on the market for possibly getting $2 billion for the team and $2 billion for the network, like you said, Alan, $4 billion coming in, that would put a smile on anyone's face. So hopefully,
John Wallace money right there.
But you know what? But John, what I find interesting is what Michelle just said too in this, is that what we're seeing in the NBA in LA with the Lakers and the Clippers, right? Steve Ballmer buys the Clippers. No one has more money than Steve Ballmer in the NBA, right? He's got a ton of money, and he invested it quickly into that team. And they have Kawhi. They have a star player. They have a well-known coach. They're building a new building, and they're going head-to-head with the Lakers. LA is always going to be a Laker town, right? Just historically, it's going to be a Laker town. But the Clippers are making enough noise now, and they're enough of a threat to the Lakers as far as getting players and spending money and keeping up with them, that it's made that a basketball hotbed. I mean, you think about how exciting it is to see those two teams go head-to-head. Here in New York, we've seen a World Series with the Mets and Yankees. We have, and we've seen them at times battle for the same player. But can you imagine having now the same scenario, a Lakers-Clippers, but now Yankees-Mets in New York, where they're both fighting for free agents, looking to outspend each other, and meeting again in the World Series maybe a couple of times? that really would ramp up baseball. And I think for the sport overall, to have two teams in the major market like New York, where, you know, spending, going after stars, having stars here and winning, be great for the sport.
And that's assuming there's no salary cap when they work out, if they work out the next CBA going into next season. That's going to be a big question mark. All right, guys, meantime, the Knicks, Leon Rose in his interview with Mike Breen said they hope to have a coach in place by the end of the month. Interviews are ongoing, and we know, John, reportedly, of course, one candidate is Tom Thibodeau, and you were on the Knicks when he was an assistant coach. What's it like to have Thibodeau on a coaching staff?
First of all, if you're talking player development, he's at the top of the list in terms of developing players. That was his main role when I first came on my rookie year. He worked with myself, all the rookies. Then he worked with Larry and Allen, and he worked tirelessly. I mean, he'd be in the gym at 7, 6 in the morning, and he'd stay there till 6 or 7 at night every single day. So, I mean, he's definitely going to bring his arduous work ethic, and he's going to make the team better instantaneously because of the work he puts in off the court. It's not just about putting in the work on the court. He does all the necessary behind the scenes and his due diligence to make sure that he's going to be successful. I love Tibbs. Obviously, I'm slightly biased because I played for him, but I know him as the man, and I know him as a coach, and I know that he makes you the best player that you can become, and that's all you want from your coach.
What I think is to keep an eye on with this is not just the head coaching candidates that they're talking to take over as the head coach, and you've seen a lot of experienced names. Tom certainly is one of those names with a ton of experience he's had in Chicago and Minnesota, and the winning that he's done as a head coach. You also have Jason Kidd, who reportedly also has interviewed as well, and he has coached in different places and wants to be a head coach again, and is one of the smartest minds. As we know, when he was a point guard, he was a coach on the floor. So that's another name you think about with some experience as well. Kenny Atkinson, who coached with the Knicks as an assistant, and talk about player development. That's certainly what he did in Atlanta as an assistant, and then came to Brooklyn and did a terrific job developing their players. He's another guy that I think a lot of people talk about. But let's not also forget another name, Mike Woodson, who also is reportedly on the list of coaches that they're going to interview. And Mike Woodson's a guy that when he was here and took over as head coach, did nothing but win. He has the 4th highest winning percentage as a head coach in Knicks history. And he didn't coach here that long, but it was well over 150 games. But he was successful. And the way he coached, it was defense, but also the way they play today offensively with a lot of three-pointers and high percentage shooting and veterans. So you have a lot of candidates with experience, but some names also to keep in mind are some of these assistant coaches that they are also talking to, which I think is what makes this search so intriguing, is that Leon Rose, William Wesley, they are leaving no stone unturned. They're not just going to the names we know, they're going to the names that they know. Who are the next head coaches? Who are the people that they think are going to become the next head coaches? And one name to keep an eye on is Chris Fleming, who's an assistant coach in Chicago, who's a brilliant offensive mind. And it may not be as a head coach, but you may be bringing a couple of top young assistants to join whoever this experienced coach is and build the best possible coaching staff you can, because Leon so far has built a very impressive front office.
To echo, I mean, you put all of that together beautifully, Alan, but one thing that really just stood out that you said is I wouldn't be surprised that they were looking at coaches like that, because that's how Leon also has looked at players. You know, we talked about how he loved to be in the gyms. He was always watching guys, maybe not those number 2, number 3 picks. I mean, obviously them included, but he was finding more of those gems a little further down. So it wouldn't surprise me that if his coaching search kind of takes a similar route.
You know, it's very interesting, guys. You go back to 12-13 with Jason Kidd as a point guard and Mike Woodson as a coach, Alan. That's the best team the Knicks have had in years. Yeah, very interesting.
And I can't say it again about Mike Woodson. This is a guy that, you know, this job was very personal to him. Remember, he was a Knick. He played for the Knicks in the early 80s, so the job was very personal to him. Jason Kidd as well, New York, very personal to him. Tom Thibodeau was an assistant here, very personal to him. And Atkinson as well was an assistant here in New York, very personal to him. So what you have are candidates that it's not just a job to them. It's very personal. It means something. And I think that's also a factor in the decision.
So the Knicks are looking for their coach. Meantime, the New Jersey Devils have a new coach, Lindy Ruff, and an official GM in Tom FITZGERALD. We'll talk to the Devils new general manager, on the coaching hire, and much more when we come back next on the MSG 150 at Home, presented by Chase.